Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Archana Solanki. Here are the headlines we're tracking this evening. Sensex and Nifty hit record highs in intraday trade after the US Fed cuts rates by 50 basis points, but both indices give up some gains in late trade. Mid-caps continue to underperform. India's Economic Affairs Secretary says the Fed rate cut is unlikely to impact foreign inflows into India. Many economists do not foresee big rate cuts from the RBI, at least until the end of this year. Bharti Airtel and Vodafone Idea lose the final legal remedy available in the AGR case. Supreme Court rejects curative petition filed by the companies alleging calculation errors by the government. Both companies owe more than 1 lakh crore rupees to the government. First Source is reinventing itself, says Sanjiv Goenka, as the company enters Australia and New Zealand. Goenka also says First Source will hopefully announce a new acquisition soon.
We've really executed quite well in the last 6 months. We've materialized a lot of the potential.
Shares of Bajaj Auto hit a lifetime high, crossing 12,000 rupees. Rajiv Bajaj says shares can hit 20,000 rupees as exports are doing well, and Freedom and Chetak have gained traction. That's an exclusive. Government investigates allegations of unsafe and exploitative environment at audit firm EY after the death of a 26-year-old employee. The mother of the deceased blamed extreme work pressure for her death. Within 4 months of joining the company, EY calls it irreparable loss and says it has provided assistance to the family. After pagers, more communication devices used by Hezbollah explode across Lebanon, killing 20 people and wounding 450 more. Israel declares the start of a new phase in the war. Prime Minister Modi reiterates the promise to restore statehood for Jammu and Kashmir at his first election rally in Srinagar amidst tight security. Accuses Congress, National Conference and the PDP of trying to divide the state.
Ultimately, I think society will benefit for what is, in my humble opinion, electricity for the 21st century.
Artificial intelligence is the electricity of the 21st century, says Vala Afshar, the chief digital evangelist at Salesforce. Exclusive interview coming up. All right, let's start with the market action. Sensex and Nifty hit record highs in early trade as a 50 basis point rate cut by the US Fed fueled a rally, but markets did give up some of those gains but still managed to end in the green. Mid-caps continued to underperform with the index ending in the red. On the other hand, financial stocks saw healthy gains with the Nifty Bank Index adding almost 300 points. And the top story this evening, the United States Federal Reserve kick-started its much-awaiting easing cycle with an interest rate cut after over 4 years. It handed out a hefty 50 basis points cut against a widely expected 25 basis points cut. Speaking at a press conference later, Fed chair clarified that nobody should assume that this is the new pace for reductions going forward. He said that Fed committee has greater confidence that inflation was moving sustainably towards the target of 2% set by the central bank. He also stressed that the Fed's goal now is to keep inflation stable while simultaneously ensuring unemployment rate does not tick higher. Back home, India's Economic Affairs Secretary maintained that the supersized rate cut by the Fed would not have any significant impact on FPI inflows. Market experts and economists maintain that a rate cut by the RBI, if any, may not happen before the year end.
The Federal Reserve has done what it assesses the good for the US economy, the largest economy in the world. And I see it as a positive for the global economy, including for the Indian economy. As far as your question about flows are concerned, it is a 50 basis points cut from a high level, from the high level. So I don't see that making any significant impact on the flows. You have to see how the things develop going forward.
All Asian central banks can cut rates to date, including the RBI. But my colleagues here, we believe the RBI is not, not going to be aggressively cutting, i.e. the RBI is going to behave in a different way from the Fed. And actually the RBI in recent months has been actually counter-cyclical because they've been doing these preemptive regulatory measures as regards the banking system. And so I would assume the RBI will cut rates once before the end of the year, but I could be wrong.
So it will be difficult for, I think from that context, RBI to go ahead and cut rates. But if we are wrong and inflation does go down to 4% sustainably, I think that will definitely open up the room for RBI to cut rates. And even if RBI cuts rates, look, we are only talking about a 50 basis points of rate cut. So I don't think there is a lot that interest rates can do now to boost growth.
But I do think the RBI will want to see a little bit more data. So we actually think in October they'll still hold their gunpowder. They'll want a little bit more conviction that yes, food inflation after 3 years of being sticky is finally going down. And as the governor keeps saying, it's not about being at 4% for a month. It's about durably seeing 4% for the next few quarters. But this does, I'll end by saying, if the Fed cutting this year increases the odds of a soft landing in the US, that's a very good global environment for risk assets in emerging markets in 2025.
As crude oil prices hover around $75 a barrel, the Indian government is cautious about a potential cut in fuel prices. Sapna Das is here with more details. Sapna, how's the Petroleum Ministry reading the current market situation?
Well, absolutely. So basically, there's a bit of a bit of caution that seems to be coming, emanating from the government quarters as far as a potential fuel price cut is involved. First, of course, the crude oil prices have been very volatile, and that's borne out by the current rates, like, near $75 a barrel in comparison to an intra-day low of around $69 just last week. So that's one. So when prices are very, very volatile, it becomes difficult for OMCs to take a call. As such, need pricing to be more stable for these kind of decisions. That's one. Second, of course, there's a lot of new information coming in, like the Fed rate cut, the China situation, how it pans out. So all of these factors need to be absorbed by the OMCs, and they need to be in touch with all these factors, and all of them probably play out with a time lag. So that's the second element that one needs to keep in mind. Third, of course, very significantly, refining margins have been coming down for quite some time, and we are now given to understand that probably on petrol, the cracks are actually negative. So that's a significant indicator of how things are, and most of the OMCs are now integrated, marketing along with refining. So it's going to be a balancing act. It's not a very, very good situation, so to speak, or not 2 + 2 = 4, where prices come up in the global market and, we start talking about a price cut in the domestic market. So that's the third element. Fourth, importantly enough, we are given to understand that there is also still some under recovery in terms of the LPG sales. Plus, we are also given to understand that the ethanol prices, which are on the higher side right now, and there's already a talk about the next ethanol pricing revision, which is most likely, the Food Ministry has already floated a cabinet note, and it's in discussion with Petroleum Ministry, with other stakeholders. So discussions will unfold with OMCs and a call will be taken accordingly. So this is also impacting the OMC in some way. They're absorbing that higher cost because there's no pass-through mechanism. So all these factors put together, OMCs will be taking a call. Of course, nobody is denying that there'll be no full price cut. But to say that, it's a straight and simple forward maths, or this is what has happened in the international markets and this is how now India should do, or the OMCs should behave, that probably is not correct. So we need to keep a close watch on this, wait and watch and see what unfolds over the next 4 odd weeks.
Right, thank you, Sapna, for that update. Moving on to another big story that we are tracking, a major blow to Bharti Airtel and Vodafone Idea in the AGR dues case. The Supreme Court rejected curative petitions filed by the companies alleging calculation errors by the government in the 2019 ruling. Both companies owe more than 1 lakh crore rupees to the government. Ashmit Kumar is here with the details. Ashmit, take us through what entailed in the hearing today.
Well, first, to establish the significance of this development, let's bear in mind this was a curative petition. This was the final legal remedy that was available to Vodafone Idea and Bharti Airtel. With the dismissal of this application, that, of course, is the bigger takeaway. The bench headed by CJI, the curative petition has been dismissed by the Apex Court. That's the bigger takeaway. But, of course, in terms of understanding the significance, this was the final court of appeal. This was the final legal remedy that was available. With this decision that we've seen today, the AGR issued issue has been put to rest. It has been finalized. The Supreme Court has had the final word that there is no dithering, there is no changing of the quantum of the AGR demand that was first levied. Bear in mind that this judgment came back in 2019. At that time, the burden that was cast on Vodafone Idea was north of 58,000 crore rupees. Burden cast on Bharti Airtel was north of 43,000 crore rupees. Now, of course, those figures have grown dramatically with the levy of the interest component. But nonetheless, the long and short is that the contention that has been raised by the telecom companies that there are arithmetic errors, there are computational errors, there are administrative errors in arriving at that AGR demand that was levied by the DOT. That concern has been set aside. The Apex Court saying that no case has been made out. It does not feel the urgency to indulge this matter anymore. And with that, the curative petitions having been dismissed by the Apex Court and the issue being put to bed, put to rest, finalized by the Apex Court, AGR demand is here to stay.
Right, AGR demand is here to stay. Thank you, Ashmit, for that. Shares of NTPC rose more than 3% in early trade. This after its subsidiary NTPC Green Energy filed a draft red herring prospectus for its 10,000 crore rupees public issue. The company is looking to raise funds via fresh issue of equity shares. Around 7,500 crore rupees of the IPO proceeds will be used to repay debt. The board of 361 RAM has approved to raise funds worth 2,250 crore rupees via qualified institutional placement in an exchange filing. The company, formerly known as IIFL Management, said that the fundraise will happen in one or more tranches. Andhra Pradesh government has approved a new excise policy which is set to be effective from the 1st of October. The state government has set a fixed price of affordable liquor at 99 rupees along with facilitating retail sales by private players. In a presser, Andhra Pradesh Minister K. Parthasarathi also announced that the state would also grant license to 12 premium shops with a tenure of 5 years. The license fee for these premium shops would be 1 crore rupees. RP Sanjiv Goenka Group-backed First Source has announced its expansion in the Australian market. The company will set up new headquarters in Melbourne. Speaking to CNBC TV 18, Chairman Sanjiv Goenka said that remains steadfast on his target to increase First Source's profits by 2.5 times in 3 years and margins by 3%. He has also hinted that the company could announce an important overseas acquisition soon.
Any acquisitions that are on the cards for First Source?
Inorganic growth is a way of life as much as organic growth is. And as we speak, there are different conversations going on with different companies. So fingers crossed. Hopefully, soon.
From one newsmaker to another, Rajiv Bajaj had earlier this year told CNBC TV 18 that he believes 12,000 would be the fair value of the stock. Today, the stock hit new highs to cross exactly that mark. Speaking to Parikshit Luthra, Bajaj said that the company is firing all cylinders and the stock could even hit 20,000 rupees.
We've really executed quite well in the last 6 months. We've materialized a lot of the potential and are well on our way as opposed to 6 months back when it was still, just brimming with potential. And if I were to again compare with the new market scenario, because the market has also moved up, so that's no credit to us. And if I look at the basket of companies I was comparing with, then it seems to me as ludicrous perhaps as 12,000 sounded at a time when we were closer to half that number. It seems to me that something closer to 20,000 is not out of the reckoning. At least in mathematical terms, one can justify it.
And you can catch the entire conversation with Sanjiv Goenka and Rajiv Bajaj on News Center at 5 and 9:30 p.m. right here on CNBC TV 18. Shares of pharma company Wockhardt rallied in trade. This after the company said an investigational drug was effective against meningitis, which is a serious infection that affects membranes covering the brain and spinal cord. Wockhardt said it should be completing phase 3 global trials in the next few months and eyes regulatory approval in India in the first half of 2025.
It crosses blood-brain barrier. And that's why Zeneca was very effective, and it has a very high coverage against resistant organisms. stage of completing phase 3 clinical trial, which is a global clinical trial. And this should get over in the next 2-3 months. And then we would be in a position to file globally in US and other countries. And that will happen after about 4-5 months of completion of clinical trial. So we expect to be in a global market sometime in 26.
The Labour Ministry will be probing the allegations levelled by the mother of a 26-year-old CA who died just 4 months after joining EY India. Anna's mother, in a letter addressed to EY India Chairman Rajiv Memani, alleged that the extreme work pressure in the organisation led to her death. Abhimanyu Sharma joins us now. Abhimanyu, what has the mother of the girl alleged exactly? Also, has EY responded to these allegations?
The Union Labour Ministry is going to probe a complaint which has claimed that overwork led to the death of 26-year-old CA Anna Sebastian Perel, who was working with Ernst & Young India since the past 4 months. The deceased mother had written a letter to the company's chairman after her death and had made several allegations. She had claimed that Anna kept on working despite deterioration in her health, and she was chasing deadlines which eventually led to her death. She also criticized a work culture in the company which seemed to glorify overwork while ignoring the interests of the human beings who were assigned to different roles. She also claimed that no one from the company had attended Anna's funeral. The company also issued a statement later giving condolences to the deceased's family, and also said that they are taking the family's correspondence with utmost seriousness and humility. Now, BJP leader Rajiv Chandrasekhar had also sought a probe into the allegations which were made by the deceased CA's family. It remains to be seen what comes out of the probe which has been initiated by the Union Labour Ministry.
Right, thank you Abhimanyu for that update. All right, it's time for a short break. Coming up next, tensions in West Asia worsen as more and more communication devices used by Hezbollah explode in Lebanon. Much more details when we return. Welcome back. The big international story is the escalation in West Asia. At least 20 people have died and 450 injured after communication devices used by militant group Hezbollah detonated across Lebanon. These devices include walkie-talkies, mobile phones, laptops and solar power cells. Reports suggested that one of the explosions occurred during a funeral procession of a Hezbollah member who was killed during the pager blast that killed 12 people and injured nearly 3,000 people. Only a day earlier, firefighters were deployed across several homes in affected regions to put out fires that engulfed around 60 homes. The Iran-backed militant group has blamed Israel for the attack. However, Israel is yet to accept or deny its involvement. Iran has also vowed to retaliate after its ambassador was wounded in the pager attack. Israel's defense minister has declared a new phase in the war, signaling more operations in the northern border with Lebanon. Lebanon's communication ministry has said that the walkie-talkies that exploded were discontinued devices made by Japanese firm ICOM. The ministry added that these models were not officially licensed and had not been vetted by the security services. The Japanese firm has also said these devices have not been in production for over a decade. They said they cannot confirm whether they were counterfeit. United States has said it's still involved in intense diplomacy to diffuse tensions. United Nations chief said civilian objects should not be weaponized.
Difficult for me to stand up here, Gabe, and tell you exactly how incidents over the last couple of days are going to affect outcomes in the next few days. All I can tell you is we're still putting our shoulder to the wheel to get the hostages home and get a ceasefire in place, as daunting as that is today. And we are still involved in intensive diplomacy to try to prevent a second front from opening up on that border with Lebanon.
It was triggered, I would say, in advance of the normal way to trigger these things, because there was a risk of this being discovered. Because obviously, the logic of making all these devices explode is to do it as a preemptive strike before a major military operation.
The United Nations General Assembly has passed a resolution calling Israel to end its illegal occupation of Palestinian territories within a year. The UN has also demanded for Israel to make reparations to Palestinians for damages incurred by the occupations. With 124 countries agreeing to the resolution, 43 countries abstained from voting, including India, Australia, Canada and the United Kingdom. Prime Minister Modi is set to embark on a 3-day visit to the United States for the Quad Summit from 21st to 23rd of September. Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri outlined PM Modi's plan in the US, which includes bilateral and multilateral meetings. The Prime Minister will also be engaging with Indian diaspora and business leaders on the visit. However, there was no confirmation on his meeting with Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump and Democratic Party candidate Kamala Harris.
The Prime Minister's first stop will be Wilmington in Delaware, which, as you know, is the hometown of President Biden. That is also the venue of this 6th Quad Summit that will be held there. It also happens to be the 4th in-person summit between the Quad leaders, and that will be during the day on the 21st of September. तो अभी मैं किसी स्पेसिफिक मीटिंग के बारे में आपको नहीं बता पाऊंगा कि मीटिंग्स फिक्स हुई हैं या नहीं. हम सभी दृष्टिकोणों से देख रहे हैं कि कितना समय हमारे पास है और किस किस से मीटिंग हो सकती है.
Here's a CNBC TV 18 exclusive. Artificial intelligence is the electricity of the 21st century. That's the word coming in from Vala Afshar, the chief digital evangelist at Salesforce. In a conversation with CNBC TV 18, he added that the company has announced $1 billion fund solely focused on generative AI startups.
You can come to conferences like Dreamforce and learn about AI. You can get certifications on Trailhead at no cost and better yourself. Ultimately, I think society will benefit for what is, in my humble opinion, electricity for the 21st century. And I think at some point, government, public sector may work together and recognize that AI should be considered a human right. If I had to guess, I would say we invest in a startup on a weekly basis. Because as I look at the hundreds of startups that we've invested in, north of, I believe, $6 billion. We just announced Monday that we have $1 billion fund focused on generative AI startups. And when you, and of course I'm speaking to someone who knows startups more than anyone maybe on earth. But the fact
I would like to claim that, but sadly, no, I don't think so.
I think if you fact check that, that may be very, very true. We launched Salesforce Ventures in 2009. Yeah. And our portfolio is incredible. I mean, this is a company, I believe Salesforce has acquired 76 companies in 25 years. So we acquire, on average, 3 companies a year.
And you can catch the entire conversation with Vala Afshar and Shireen Bhan at 6:30 p.m. right here on CNBC TV 18. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Business 360. More news and updates